unstoppable kick-ass confidence. Are you ready?
Welcome to the Raw and Unscripted show with Christopher Rausch, where we help you overcome your self-created crap without the self-help fluffy bullshit. Now please welcome our host, Christopher Rausch.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? You are at your place for the Raw and Unscripted podcast. I am your host, Christopher Rausch, your no excuses coach, where I bring you the opportunity to expand your horizons and to think about your life, your past, your present, your future with a much different set of eyes so that you can be empowered to have a kick-ass, unstoppable life. I appreciate you guys for being here, whether you're live or on the replay, whether you're watching us on the video cast or listening to us on the audio podcast. We appreciate you guys here. And just to share something with you that I don't think I knew last week, but I'm not a big person of numbers about my show. I just know that I'm impacting a lot of people. I know we're in 9 countries, and I just figured it's growing exponentially over time, and I'm very thankful for how it is growing. But a friend of mine turned me onto this website called Listen Notes, and apparently what it is it takes all the podcasts around the entire globe and it ranks them. And so I was much surprised that my podcast, this Raw and Unscripted show, is ranking in the top 10% of the entire podcast all around the globe. There's something like 6 billion or 6 million or whatever the hell it was, you know, and I appreciate you guys all for following me. We've been doing this now for 3 years. We're on show number 204. So we've been doing this 203 episodes. We got that done. Been doing the Unfiltered Experience, I think, for 113 episodes. And then before that, I did the Kick-Ass radio show, which was 2.5 years of live broadcasting. So actually this year, 2023, I'm celebrating 10 years in broadcasting and doing this stuff. And even more so than this, you guys got to hang on for this. I started off doing a podcast called Three Sides of the Coin. It was myself, and it was a lady named Carol Pilkington, and another one, Audra Irwin. And we were very much three completely different people. We were in the same mastermind, and we kind of joked around like we should do a show together where we kind of talk about the 3 sides of a coin on a particular issue and just kind of give that, you know, different perspective and everything, because we all love each other. Right? We were out there to do this. So got reconnected with both of those guys. So we're going to do a special show, the Raw and Unscripted show, of the 3 sides of the coin. So I'm going to be showing video clips of what I look like and how I was sounding back in 2015 when we did this. So it's pretty hysterical. I was just like, oh my God, I've gotten a little bit better at this shit. So thank you guys for hanging with me all those particular years and supporting this show. Thank you. As always, let me know what I can do to support you guys as far as guests go and everything else. We are booked into September right now. We are going crazy. I've got so many people reaching out to want to be on the show. So I just thank each and every one of you guys from the bottom of my heart for recommending people and having people come here and check out the show. So if you're not subscribed on the audio podcast, I know a lot of you guys watch, please consider going and doing that. You can just go to rawandunscripted.com and you can find the access right there to subscribe to iTunes or iHeart or Spotify, whatever it is for you. Do us a favor, do that. And not only that, when you get value out of this particular episode, which I know you will, and the podcast overall, do us a favor and leave us a review in iTunes. That would be most appreciated. Send me a copy of that so I can personally thank you, because sometimes the names don't match on there. So just so I can personally thank you for that. So with that, I've got a super exciting show for you guys tonight. So please take a pencil in hand, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. If you're driving, please pull over and listen to this. I promise you it'll be worth your time. It's something that I've been doing, this passion project, where I'm taking and getting some masculine men in my life to sit here and have a very vulnerable and a very open-ended conversation about what it means to be masculine, what it means to go through vulnerable times, what it means to get honest and real with your feelings and your emotions, when so many times we are stereotypically not supposed to do those things. So we did round one of these about a month or so ago. We had Scott Goyette on there. We had Walt McKinley. We had Jacques Equer that was on that one. So if you're listening to this, you can actually check out the show notes and it'll have a link back to that if you missed that first conversation. But it was epic. We had so many different kind of breakthroughs between ourselves, and then also the tips that we shared with you guys. It just inspired me to want to continue having these types of conversations here via the Raw and Unscripted platform, because our whole goal in this project is, you know, with my company, Master Motivators, is to go out there and make this world a much better place for who I am and what I do, and just to bring awareness and opportunity and resiliency to all of you guys. So out there, we can start healing, especially us male population. We can start healing some of the trauma and some of the bullshit that we got going on in our lives, so we can be effective fathers, so we can be impactful people in our community, so we can make this world a better place for our kids and our kids' kids. So with that, I am blessed to have with me tonight my brother from another mother, Walt McKinley. We got Lee Hite in the house. We got Paul Roscoe White. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here on the Raw and Unscripted show. How are each of you doing this evening?
Man, let's go. I'm fired up. We ready to get this crack in. I know we're going to drop some gold nuggets for everybody tonight. And most importantly, I think just continuing to talk about men's mental health specifically is something that we can't do enough of. So I'm feeling blessed to be here with you again, brother. Thank you for having me.
We are blessed to have you here as well. Thank you, brother. How are you doing, Mr. Paul Roscoe White? Your first time, I think, gracing the Raw and Unscripted screens, but we have you scheduled to be as a solo guest. How are you doing this evening, man?
Yeah, man. Looking forward to the discussion coming up, and treat this as kind of a warm up for our podcast coming up here. I think it's April 26th that you and I are scheduled a little one-on-one time, so it'll be good.
Awesome. And you, Mr. Lee Hite, my brother from another mother from the clubhouse days, to connect with one another. How are you doing this evening?
Oh, doing good, man. I'm just looking forward to this conversation. This quite a little gathering of folks, and I'm pretty excited about it. See what's going on. It's good to be with Walt. I haven't spent much time with Walt lately, so and looking forward to getting to know Paul just a little bit. So this is exciting.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys being here. We got some fellow brothers and sisters in the house. We got Tara Murney in the house. We got my brother Brian Kelly in the house. Tara Murney says, "So proud of you." We got Tara Nicole in the house. Thank you for being here. Debbie Bettendorf's in the house. So we got all these beautiful women here, plus Brian. So thank you guys for being here. So feel free to share this conversation out to your social media land and let the male population know that you connect with it. We're having this conversation. So the first question I have for each one of you tonight, and thank you guys all for being here because I am excited about this. In a minute or less, or 2 minutes or less, what is it that you want to get across most to the male population that's listening and watching this particular broadcast? What is it that you want them to know about your particular journey in vulnerability and empowering yourself and becoming resilient and strong in your masculinity while also embracing your femininity? Talk about that for 2 minutes or less, and that way we can kind of set the stage for what it is that we're going to be talking about throughout this discussion tonight. So, Walt, I'll throw it to you first.
Man, I was going to abstain just because I always go first. So no, I love it. Look, first I want men to know they're not alone. I think oftentimes we're so busy either trying to show up really well in front of other men and talk about our work and our promotions and our cars and our things and trying to puff our chest out so much just to other men instead of just connecting on a real level that we can feel alone. I think we're so busy running away from vulnerability most times, and I've done this plenty in my own life, that we don't actually connect with the women in our lives who need us to be vulnerable in order to form a real connection. And I think overall, if we want to really be authentic and happy and fulfilled and really live a life where we're maximizing our potential, we really got to embrace the masculine form of our vulnerability. Everybody says it's feminine. So then I think men tend to run from that. But if you just embrace the masculine form of your own vulnerability, even with your buddies, the difference in your connection, the difference in your happiness, the difference in where you're going and the output of your entire life will massively change.
Dude, brilliant. Love it. Well, thank you, brother, for that. Mr. Lee, you can go next. Follow that up with your thoughts and desires for this conversation tonight.
Oh, wow. It's the thing that I just think about constantly. We come back to this time and time again is authenticity, learning to be true to who we are, vulnerability, just being transparent about who I am and what I believe, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling in any given situation. It can be so challenging because we get raised. I don't want to go too deep right now, but it's like we get raised up to be a certain way, to be a guy. I mean, I think I'm looking at the faces here. I think I'm probably the oldest one here on the stage, and it's like I could be, coming up. It was like you were a dude. I mean, you had to be a man. You had to step up. You had to be tough and rough and tumble. You couldn't cry and all the stuff and things. Man, it's just ridiculous. And buying into that model for so long brought so much pain and eventually so much shame. And we'll dive into all of that. And what I want to say, just to set it up tonight, is to just really learn to get in touch with who and what I am as much as I can in any given moment, and strip away all the pretense, strip away all the crap, and just be a damn human, right? You don't have to be a dude. You don't have to be ultra masculine. You don't have to be feminine. Just be sensitive. All this stuff. Just be human. That's kind of the concept I'm playing with these days, is getting beyond all the label stuff and just show up, man. Do the best I can.
I love it. I love it, brother Lee. We're going to dive deep into that as well. And Paul, for you, 2 minutes. What's on your heart and mind to get across to men listening to this, and maybe even the women that are listening to this as well? I mean, this is for everybody here, that we can all heal and grow and move forward. So I'm interested to hear what you got to say, brother.
Yeah, this is probably something that everybody can kind of pile onto. But my thing is, I spent 21 years in a predominantly male career in the military that is largely ego and bravado driven. And I think as men, we get sold this bill of goods as, probably somewhere around 16 to 19 years old, that's the way we're supposed to be, and somebody, one of the two guys before mentioned walking with your chest out. And yeah, that's okay, and it's okay to be the protector and provider of your family and be the rock that everything crashes against. But you also kind of have to be the teddy bear that people can snuggle up with too. And I'll admit, man, I'm probably leading the pack at people that suck at this. So it's a constant daily challenge. And I'll say that in my own personal journey, I've gotten a lot better at this in the last couple of years of just being a little bit more open and trying to show some emotion, other than, just kind of having my resting bitch face and sitting there on the couch and taking everything as it comes. And generally, I used to joke with my kids that you don't really know if I'm happy or sad or pissed or getting ready to go run a marathon, or you get the same expression all the time. And I'm trying to change that just a little bit. I'm not real good at it, but just like everybody else, work in progress. I'm a wad of clay right now. Maybe one day I'll be a swan.
There you go. I like that. And just to take a phrase from what Lee has been talking about recently, is up until now. So maybe that's been a challenge for you up until now, but at least the fact that you're aware of it and that you're taking strides to make a difference in that aspect of your life. I mean, I applaud you, man, because that's how that change starts to happen. That repetitiveness goes and it becomes part of your hardwired new routine. So I applaud you for that. So the question I have for you guys to kick off.
Wait, Christopher, you didn't,
yes, sir.
Like, you go to the next question. What is your 2-minute synopsis?
Well, my 2-minute thing is that ultimately, like I said before, basically in the intro of the show tonight, is to impact as many men's lives as we possibly can, and perhaps shift some perspectives of the women in their lives as well, for us to really take an inner look at within ourselves and find out what areas we need healing, what areas that are still triggering us from that emotional stage of what we were doing when we were kids, when our beliefs and our ideals about ourselves and our identity were really framed. The first 5 years of our life really caused us to be who we are and where we are today in our beliefs. And so it's my invitation for people watching and listening this right now, is that we start exploring some of that trauma and that buried resentment and anger, so that we can heal from the inside and start to have better relationships with our spouses and our partners and our coworkers, and have that bleed out into the rest of the world, so that ultimately we're vibrating from a higher frequency, a vibration of love and not fear. And for me, it's always been, really being specific and intentional about how can we see things from a perspective of love and try to heal some of these stored memories of ourselves, so that we can leave this world a better place for our kids and our kids' kids. So yes, that is my intention for tonight. And the first question I want to throw off to you guys, I think it'll be an interesting jumping off point, is how has your definition or your understanding of masculinity changed over your lives? We're all older now. We've been through some experiences, and we've had our youthful 20s and our teenage years and our 30s and our 40s. I'm 54, so I'm up there with Lee as well. What is your understanding and your idea of masculinity? How has that shifted as you've gotten older? And what are some reflections now that you can see a little bit differently that might help other people as they come through the ranks as well, if you will? So yeah, whoever wants to go first.
Lee. Go first.
All right, I'll go first. Walt.
I'll go first every time. You guys know me.
No,
and then I feel bad because I always go first.
It's all right. No, dude, I'll dive in. You saw my wheels turning. Wow. Okay, so where do I start? Yeah, I grew up on John Wayne and the gang. Watching all that. I mean, first generation Batman and the Green Hornet, and all that coding. So, being masculine meant to be tough, rough and tumble, no tears, suck it up, suit up, show up, do your stuff. Don't whine, don't cry, don't talk, and God forbid, don't talk back to dad.
Yeah.
And all this, it's like all that stuff, and be tough, fight, stand up for yourself. And I wasn't, and I tried to show up like that guy, but I really wasn't on the inside. I was not that kid. And because of, I said, and as a result of some of the traumatic events of my early childhood, I was burdened with all kinds of confusion about my own identity, confusion about, and really a really sincere lack of self-worth, and a real message that told me, the messaging that I got was that people that love me leave, number one, and number two, I wasn't worthy of the attention of anybody per se. And so I had this real paradoxical dynamic going on in my consciousness, in my thinking. On one side, I'm being called to step up, stand out, step forward, be brave, be courageous, and all that. All the while on the inside, there's this 6-year-old cringing and hiding and going, oh my God, if I really stand up and I really stand out, they're never going to like me. They're never going to love me, and on and on and on and on and on. So I lived with that paradox for decades, and really did not, until the last few years, start to really grasp the dynamic of it. And what happened, so, the trauma and all the process of growing up led me into various addictions and all that kind of behavior. That's a whole other show. We're not going to dive into that. Well, we have already a couple times, but anyway. But to the masculinity thing, so one of the ways I overcompensated was by, one, being an outstanding student in school, until I started doing the whole, I don't need to show you how smart I am, so I will, fail to do all the homework and I'll ace all the exams and make you have to figure out how to deal with me.
You did that intentionally? That was intentional?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And how old were you at that point?
High school.
Okay. Wow.
That's when I got into high school. And I was a top 10% athlete in junior high and high school. I was always on the all-star team. I was always, I was an overachiever. To mask all the uncertainty and all the uncomfortability and the lack of self-worth and the shame and all that. So I overachieved to hide all the darkness.
Right.
That was going on inside of me.
How do you view all that now? Yeah. How do you view all that now?
So I look back at all that now and I go, okay, so there's this very sensitive, very intuitive, very empathic kid walking through school, taking in all this stuff and that has no clue how to deal with it. And it wasn't until I got into high school and really dove into my spiritual journey that I started to get a handle on it. And that was just the beginning. So we're talking going back to what now, 1974, when that started for me. And that was the beginning of really starting to deal with it. That was the beginning of the light slowly coming on. However, diving into it, it's like, that's what I learned about the whole balance of masculine, started understanding the masculine and feminine aspects of the individual.
Right.
And really started to figure out how to learn just the beginnings of learning how to balance that, coming into a deeper understanding of my own spiritual nature. And that really saved me. That entry into spiritual study, which was outside of high school. So what happened was that dragged me out of a lot of the unhealthy relationships I had in my high school core group into this spiritual community-based core group that began to wake me up to the pain, that began to wake me up to understanding what was going on. Just the beginnings.
So you were receptive. You were ready for those seeds to start growing.
Oh, absolutely. I was ready for that to start growing. And that was really the beginning of, waking me up to my own inner balance and my own inner nature, and waking up to the more feminine side of me, the intuitive side of me, the empathic part of me, the part of me that really looks out on the world and sees how everything's connected.
Yeah.
And not just sees it, but feels it. I walk through the world feeling the connection to everything around me, to the people, places, things. That's the way I move through the world. And an increasing just a little bit, I feel it, it comes and goes, but it's like it's slowly growing every day because I keep doing the work. And that work is all about balancing the masculine and feminine sides of ourselves. We're talking, here talking about, men's mental health and what that's all about. For me, it's about getting beyond this whole, boy, girl, man, woman, all that stuff, and saying, okay, I'm a human and I show up like this. I show up in this male body, female body, you name it body. That's what I am. That's the physical body I inhabit. But that's me inhabiting this. This my body is the outpicturing of who I am on the inside. It's an outpicturing of my consciousness.
Right.
And so however that consciousness shows up, outpicturing as my body and the experience I have of Walt and Paul and Christopher and, Mario and Tara and Susan and Carol and the rest in the audience, I sit here and I just say, I'm just going to show up as me to the best of my ability. And some days I'm a more masculine presence. Some days I'm a more feminine presence. Some days I'm just, just me.
Right. Right. I'm gonna stop you right there. I'm gonna stop you right there because you gave us a lot to digest from right there. But I want to go ahead and allow Walt and Paul to kind of answer the same question. So, how has your understanding of masculinity changed over time in your particular journeys as well? And then we'll dive into that a little bit.
So I'll go ahead and jump in so we can make Walt go last. It'll make him feel better about himself, I guess.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
There you go. Hey, somebody's gonna be last, right? Nice guys finish last. Something. There's some cool saying, I guess, to put you in your place in last. Okay, if you're not first, you're last. There. Let's say that. If you're not first, you're last. So mine, I might be the only guy on this panel tonight that didn't have some really egregious traumatic event in his youth or growing up. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to relate to maybe somebody who's not experienced something like maybe some of you other guys have. And I know, I know a little bit about all of your stories, but I want to echo a couple of things that Lee mentioned. And, I was kind of the guy too in high school, grade school and high school that, I didn't do homework. I copied Shelley King's homework in a homeroom every day and somehow was able to make A's and B's on all the tests. And, then as I kind of went through those transformative years, that transition from boyhood to young adulthood, becoming a young man, something happened. And I don't know what it is. And I wish that I could put my finger on it, but I was filled with this tremendous amount of false self-confidence to the point where I developed a really shitty attitude towards a lot of people. Now, couple that with, as I was going through growing up into the military in my early 20s, I promoted very fast for all the same reasons that I just said. I was able to score well on the test and generally not a knucklehead. So I was able to promote pretty fast through the ranks. And I quickly got put into a leadership position that I was just not ready for. So instead of taking my mentor's advice and trying to draw it back a little bit, I ended up kind of leaning more into it and going, no, I'm in charge. And you guys all know, if you have to tell people you're in charge, you're not in charge. So it ended up snowballing to a point where, again, overachieving, I ended up going to officer school. And one of the pieces of advice that I got as I was transitioning was just be the best at everything and you'll get whatever you want. And holy crap, for a guy with an ego the size of Texas, that really resonated with me, right? Well, it took me a long time to get knocked down a few pegs to really develop a little bit of humility and really be able to show who I think I was really supposed to become. And one real quick story, and then I'll turn it over to Walt. But that transition from being a hardened military man full of bravado and ego, last fall, end of October, 1st of November timeframe, my youngest son, 18 years old, played his last football game. And our family has been we've been a football family since our kids were little. I played football. All of our grandparents played football. I mean, we've just been a football family, and all three of my boys played football since they were like 6, 7, 8 years old. Right. And the baby played his last game. And after the game was over, it was a loss, unfortunately, but on the last game, he and I ran up to each other in the end zone, and just this big, huge man embrace and tears flowing and boo-hooing. When I looked at my son and he realized that he had devoted everything in his life up to that point to one thing, and then that one thing was taken away from him, I think it really let us just kind of let that emotion out. And what I've been trying to do is transition from being that hardened, resting bitch face kind of dude to showing a little bit more emotion and throwing that vulnerability out there. And like, you know, we've all probably been guilty of trying to solve our wives' problems when really all she wanted us to do is just listen for 5 minutes. Yeah. And I'm trying to get a little bit better at that kind of stuff. So, there you go. Over to you, Walt.
That's awesome, Paul. Thank you for that, Sherry. You, Mr. Walt.
I think part of it is we are problem solvers. That's what we do.
We're damn good at it too. God damn it.
One, we're men, and then Paul, you and I are military guys. So, look, I think about my own childhood and what masculinity meant. Masculinity meant beatings for me. Masculinity meant being thrown in the basement, chained to beds, like all the horrific things that happened to me. And when I would cry about it, when I would show emotions about it, I would get called Wilma.
Oh,
and so you want to talk about another layer, like I'm not even being called Walt because I flinch, because I'm scared, because I'm nervous around adults, because of my experiences, I'm being called Wilma in that moment. And what that did is that manifested itself to when, you know, as I'm 15, 16, 17, and the testosterone's flowing, I had such a physical nature about me. And it was funny because all my friends used to be like, bro, you trying to protect everybody. So yeah, women and children. Because I felt like I wasn't protected. Now I can protect other people now that I'm bigger and more aggressive.
Yeah.
But it showed up so negative. Like masculinity for me in those formidable teenage years was putting my hands on other people and bullying the bully. And it's not like I'm a huge guy. I'm 5'10". You know, I was like 180 pounds in high school, but bullying the bully, which felt really good to me. And I knew that if I was going to really change who I was, I had to change my behavior. Even at that age, I still knew it. I didn't know how to do it. I definitely didn't know how to be vulnerable. I didn't know how to cry. All I knew how to do was be physical and try to hurt somebody. And so it took me time. You know, I went in the Navy. I had some incredible mentors. I realized like my whole disposition was built off of anger at that point. It was so much anger. Everything happened to me, not for me.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that didn't go right in my life, it was, oh, my bad luck. Can't believe this shit is happening to me again. Right. So my energy was flowing in a way that brought a lot of negativity into my life because of what I went through and what I was taught and where my mentality was at that point. And I, you know, the beginning, especially in the military for me, leaving my hometown, getting me out of the environment. And I think most people misplace a safe environment only with the external, but I didn't really work on the internally safe environment, which I do my 4 keys to living an extraordinary life. And that's what I teach people. How do you create the internal environment where you can thrive and stop surviving? I was surviving and all my motivation was still anger. It was, I'm not going to let them hold me back. I'll be damned if they're controlling my life now. They're not going to still do this to me as an adult. But what was happening is every time I thought about my trauma, I was re-victimizing myself because I hadn't actually healed from any of it yet. What I realized is I met my wife, Stephanie. Now, we've been together 26 years. I'm married 23, almost 24 here real soon.
Congratulations.
What I realized is I could actually move through life and my motivation could be love. It didn't have to be anger. Anger gave me the initial push to get the hell out of there and do something different. But I couldn't live my life in anger. I couldn't be the man I wanted to be if I didn't feel right inside, if I was angry inside, if I was easily frustrated inside, if everybody walked on eggshells around me, because I couldn't control my behavior and I reacted versus responding to situations I was in. And then once I had my first daughter, it was like another level of that love, the true unconditional love that only comes with your own child. And it was as I laid my hands over Stephanie and her, and I'll never forget this, in the hospital, and I just prayed, like, God, don't let me replicate anything that I went through on my family. And I just set out to change the legacy of where I started. And that led me into corporate America. I overachieved, like you guys, right? Paul, Lee, Christopher, like I overachieved. I was promoted fast. I was enlisted. Then I was an officer in the military. I was an executive in corporate America, 4 promotions in 5 years. My motive, like my perspective of where I started catapulted me as an adult because I knew where I started. So it was like a lot of times running away from where I started. Right. Instead of embracing the journey and the legacy of what I was leaving behind from the people that I interacted with, my own family, and really being that difference and change maker. In corporate America, it led me to a nervous breakdown because I don't have an off switch. I will tell you guys, do you know how hard it is for me still to turn myself off and just do the self-care and not feel like that's girly, to do the self-talk and not feel like that makes me weak, to be able to have conversations about my emotion, to not always have to be the rock lifting somebody else up, because that's my jam. I love doing that. It fires me up. But sometimes I don't have the space to do it, so maybe I don't take the phone call at that point because of that. I got to know my own limitations. And it took me having a nervous breakdown in corporate America to do it. And what I realized in that moment, here I am thinking I'm this great leader, and I feel like I'm a great leader. But by example, I wasn't showing people how to be vulnerable. I didn't go to my team. I'm telling them to take vacation, telling them to take mental health days because we're getting crushed, telling them to take time, and I wasn't doing it. So through my actions, I wasn't actually showing them that it was okay. It was do as I say, not as I do. And I would joke, this is the only time I'll ever say that. Every other time I'll set the example. But boss, Walt, you need a day off. I'll be okay. There's too much happening. And I didn't do any of this self-care.
Badge of honor.
Resilience, captain. Resilience, right here.
Oh, yeah. I was the same way.
But at home, guess what? I wasn't teaching my kids. Guess what? I wasn't showing my spouse. I wasn't showing my kids that it's okay to put yourself before your job too. Yeah. And that was a really big miss for me. And it's something that I'm embracing the last couple of years. I have cried more in the last 2 years than I have in my adult life. I used to brag about how little I cried. That's good. And a lot of it's happy tears. But man, embracing that vulnerability has opened up another gate to happiness that was locked before I was vulnerable, got the key, stepped through it. And the way I show up for my wife, my children, the people around me, people in this life that need me, has transformed my internal level of happiness while I continue to help change as many lives as I can along this journey.
Hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about, guys.
Hey, Chris, let me pile on to just one thing that Walt said.
Absolutely, go for it.
I won't take all the time, but you mentioned being a protector at some point, right? And that was kind of your outlet. All right. Well, I think we've all been guilty as husbands and as dads. We've been guilty of taking on that protector provider role for our families. Right. And I think to get back to your initial question about what is masculinity and how has that changed over the years? Well, I think at an early age, at least in our generation, we were taught to be that leader of your family, be the head of your family and make those tough decisions and, lead your kids and discipline your kids. And, you and your wife are a team and all those normal standard things. And I don't disagree with any of that. Where I disagree with the current modality is rather than leading from a position of authority in your family, I'm trying now to lead from a position of an example and a position of love. And the difference is I'm not going in there and I'm not yelling at my kids to go and do the things that they need to get done every day. Right. My kids are fairly grown up people. What I'm trying to do instead is be the example. I want to be the reason that they do the things that they do. I want them to look at their old man and say, that's how you love a woman. I want them to look at their old man and say, this is how you lead a family. This is how you take care of your professional and your finances and all of those different elements that are very important to us as the leaders of our family. And I think switching that role a little bit, not only has it provided better leadership for them, in my opinion, because, I mean, when we're at work or our day-to-day lives, we don't typically respond very well to the shaky finger, you need to go and do this.
Yeah.
Rather, we would like to see, hey guys, let's go and do this. And when I need my kids to go out and help me with some yard work, I don't sit in my living room and yell at them to go pick the weeds. I get out there and I get on my hands and knees with them. Little things like that, I think, go a long way. So I love that you brought up being the protector and how that was almost a negative point in your story to a degree, but I still relish that role. I still love that role, the protection role, the provider role of my family. I still love doing that. I've just changed my tactics on how I do it.
Right.
Well, I think back then though, I was protecting people I felt couldn't protect themselves based upon my assumptions. I relish in the provider protector role for my family.
That's not terribly dissimilar, though. I mean, your kids to a degree can't protect themselves sometimes. So maybe it's not that dissimilar. I know what you're saying. I'm not trying to argue with you or anything. I get where you're going with it, but
Cool. So thank you guys for that. For me, when I think about my journey, I mean, I never grew up with my biological father. So for me, masculinity was something that I saw on the television. That's what I saw in the movies. That's what I had my first visualization of. But my mother, to her credit, I guess, in some respects, she wouldn't let me play with G.I. Joe. She wouldn't let me play with army men, no guns, no cops and robbers. So in one respect, I'm happy for that because it's made me a very emotionally connected person. It's helped me with tons of my relationships with females. I've always had a lot better relationships with women than I have with men because I've never been a guy's guy. I was into sports for a while, but I really wasn't into it. And so I've always just had more of a connection with women based on how I was raised. And so for me, masculinity was always something I saw on the television. Was it something that Mel Gibson did, or was it something, somebody did in their hero movie? This is how you take care of a girl. But because I had so many great relationships with women, I would ask them like, so when you see a male figure in a television series or a movie, who is it that you're attracted to most? And what I found like 98% of the time was that it's the guys that makes them laugh. It's the guy that just totally being normal. It's not the guy that's trying to beat somebody else up. It's not the guy who's got the 6-pack abs and the perfectly coiffed, blonde hair and the blue eyes. Every single time, nearly, it was all about that person makes them laugh, like John Cusack, or, the list goes on of different people. So for me, masculinity has always been trying to be, how can I be the best form of myself without really dissecting it between femininity and masculinity. There's been points in my life where I'm like, okay, I got to be a little bit more masculine in this relationship. I've had girls tell me like, I dig you and I appreciate you, but I don't feel like you're necessarily like you'd be jealous, if something happened. You seem like you're just so chill. So I've had to kind of step up that game in some respect. I mean, not with my wife now. We've been together for nearly 22 years, actually to celebrate our 21st anniversary. Knowing each other. So I found that for me, the masculinity is just being able to know that I can handle myself in a situation where I might need to protect my family. I can be an excellent leader, like you guys have been talking about with my kid, and make sure that I'm walking that talk and that I'm in alignment with my values, which I think is another thing we can talk about here as guys is, making sure that we're aligned with our values and what's most important to us as men, but also being able to have that connection with people and see the softer side of us. So I'm glad where this conversation is going in the interest of time, because I figured we could be able to talk about a lot of stuff. That's why I was trying to keep it within time. I know each one of you guys brought a question to ask us to kind of help us broaden the conversation as well as for what we could do for men. So who has a question you would like to ask us? And then we can kind of dive off into that as well.
So I'll jump in on this one. I have a question.
Walt
So
McKinley.
in society right now, we got two different people, environments, like cultures talking about masculinity. You have the nobody cares, work harder, stop being a wuss, stop crying, this alpha male bullshit.
Ed Tate type?
Like
Andrew
Tate,
Tate.
Right? Whatever his name was, Tate.
Andrew Tate. Okay.
Which is, in my opinion, corrupting, especially young boys. Then on the other side, you have don't even be masculine because it's toxic.
Right.
And men are in such a quandary of, well, crap, how do we even show up as men in this world when I'm being told I'm too masculine, then I'm being told I'm not masculine enough. And so how do you guys rectify that, especially for any man? But I'm thinking specifically like teenage boys, young men in their early 20s. How should they show up in the world when you're in this middle ground, and then frankly, this battleground between the alpha male mentality and the toxic masculine mentality?
I love that. Lee, why don't you take that first one?
Are you sure? Yeah,
Of
I'm going to
course.
dive in. I'll dive in.
Great question, by the way.
Thanks.
Yes, actually, yeah, wonderful question. Well, thank you. And this is what I dance with a lot. I mean, I dance with this a lot. I was thinking as we were sharing, we were talking about defense, we were talking about being protector and all of that. And I was remembering back, when I finally earned my black belt in Shaolin Kempo at the age of 39. It's a journey I started in 1972. When junior high. And I finally finished it, and I got to the end. And what I realized, not the end, it's just another beginning. Anyway, is that my reason for finishing and my reason for starting were completely different.
What's that about?
My reason for starting was so that I could be strong and I could fight back, because I was picked on in junior high, middle school. And when I finished it, it was so that I could say that I finished something, because it was a big deal. And that kind of training is training so that you learn to understand that you do not have to fight, that any battle exists within my own mind. And that the moment I have, and if at any moment when I am in that kind of an encounter, I acknowledge the existence of an opponent, I've lost. In that moment, I've lost. Because then my attention is so much on my opponent that my true focus needs to be with who I am, where I am, and what I'm doing, and focusing on the energy that is moving through and the energy that I'm interacting with.
Gotcha.
It's not about my opponent. And this is a thing like what Walt was talking about with the whole alpha male and the toxic masculinity paradigm we live in the midst of today. I choose to simply not give it any energy at all. And if it's ever brought up to me, I say, it doesn't matter, because that has nothing to do with who I am as an individual today. Sure, I've had bits and pieces of all that stuff as part of my expression at any given, other times in my life. And what I have learned to choose to focus on is, how can I show up, like I talked about before, how can I show up today, and how can I love more?
Love that.
If I stay focused on how I can love more today than I did yesterday, how I can be more present today than I was yesterday, how I can be more compassionate, more content, more joy-filled. And trust me, it all sounds all like rainbows, butterflies, unicorns. It's not. Trying to expand working to expand the expression of those qualities through me every day means that I have to spend some time in the cave. I need to spend some time in that cave, pounding on coal and screaming my ass off and crying and facing all that stuff, all the while remembering that, I've carried a little, lighter in there with me in my pocket, so that I can remember that there's light. Learning and growing every day, sure, there's challenges. And when I focus so much on the crap, all those stories that society tells us, if I'm paying attention to that, I'm not paying attention to what's really important, and that's what's going on inside of me.
Yeah.
And that's what I teach my kids. That's what I work with my students on. That's what I work with the people that come to me, on a occasional basis. Hey, Lee, what about da 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 da? It's what I talk about, what I'm speaking or what I'm teaching? How can I love more? How can I strip away these stories I've told myself about how I'm limited, no good, shame-filled, blah, 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 all this crap. And that's what it is. It's just a story. And I get to tell a better story.
Yes.
Because the stories I tell about me make a difference. So I have to learn to tell a better story.
I
That's
love
what
that.
I got, guys.
Thank you for that, man. There's so many different jumping off points for that. But Paul, what's your answer to that beautiful question? Being your father of 2 boys?
3. Yeah, I got
3
3
boys. Oh boy.
I think there's balance in all things, right? Or there should be. And I think it takes all kinds of kinds. And that's something that took me a long time to realize. You know, I go to work every day with 33 type A lions. And I've realized that not everybody is a lion. You know, as I'm having different conversations with a lot of different people, not everybody is that eat your young kind of dude. So for me personally, you know, I think there is a little bit of a balance there. I used to coach football, and I had Coach White's big 3 and Coach White's little 3. And my big 3 was attitude, attention, and effort. And my little 3 was accountability, responsibility, humility. And I think that if you just combine those 6 things and you are self-aware enough to be able to practice those every day, then that just makes you a better person. Whether you're a type A, type B, doesn't matter, right? I think the key, the one that everything hinges on is that last one, that humility piece of it. Whether you're a type A guy or not, whether you're on one end of the spectrum or the bell curve or on the other end, I think if you have that piece, then that is the piece that allows you to separate and admit fault and admit your flaws and open yourself up to progress and learning and progression and things like that. And it takes a long time to develop that. Some people, I think, maybe are born with a little bit more of it. Me personally, I had to swallow a lot of pride to get there. And it took a lot of years of practice to be able to stand in front of a room and say, hey, I screwed up, and take that feedback and knock me down a peg or two. But once I did, that really opens up. That really, it really just destroys all the barriers in the way of that progress that you're looking for as a person, as an individual, whatever your role is, you know, professional, personal, at home, doesn't matter.
True. I love that. Thank you for that, Paul. So my answer to that question, what was the question again? Remind me again. Just make sure I get it right. Because I had
talking about the middle ground between toxic masculinity people and alpha male people.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I love that question because you're absolutely right. I'm in alignment with what you guys are talking about. For me, it's like, am I being real with myself? Is it going against anything that I value the most? And for me, a benchmark, a litmus test for things, is it illegal, immoral, or unethical? Right? When I think about those things, can I compliment a woman based on how she looks? If I know the person and I know it's the intention is there not to be, you know, hey baby, you want to come home and suck my dick or something like that. My intention is right there to let her know that she's a beautiful person. So for me, it's like, okay, it's not immoral, and it's not unethical, it's not illegal. Yes. Does it align with my values to be honest and to lift people up? Yes. Am I being crude or insensitive or anything else? No. So I'm going to sit there and do that. So I think that's a masculine way of saying, hey, listen, you look beautiful, and being able to have that confidence within myself to not have to hide who I truly am. And then also at the same time, being able to put somebody in their place and not rolling over where I used to be like the people person, like, oh, how can I find the best solution for everything? And sometimes I'd piss off my girlfriends. They're like, Chris, why can't you just tell the guy to go fuck himself and not bother us anymore? You're always trying to find the common ground. You're always trying to be the bigger person. And so I had to go from that. Okay, I'm trying not to be an asshole because you've dated a bunch of assholes. So I don't want to appear aggressive, but at the same time, you're asking me for that masculinity. So it's, I think having, like you said, that balance and being able to know, for me, is always checking in with my partner and being able to say, hey, you know, did I handle that situation, or there's something else different you would like to have seen, and be able to read that and understand that a little bit more to know what their expectations are for being in a particular situation. Would you want me to come to your senses and, you know, start punching people, or do you want me to try to talk my way out of it? What is it that you expect to see what masculine is for me? And I think for, you know, balancing that with my son is being able to teach him about, again, what is it that we want to experience most in life? Do we want to experience niceness and love and honesty and affection and everything like that? Then that's what we need to be. And so that's again the opportunity here for this discussion is to be able to find ways to be able to unlock some of that stored trauma and that hurt and that anger that we've experienced as kids, be able to resolve some of that so we're not so pointed in the fact that when we're driving our cars and being reactive or being triggered like that. So I love that question. Thank you for that, Walt. How do you answer that question for yourself?
Man, I was a toxic male in my early 20s to my 30s, you know, wanted to be in tough man competitions. I was in the military, getting told my feelings didn't come in my sea bag, you know, so I just pushed everything away and pushed it down. What I've come to realize that the older I've gotten with some wisdom is just be the example. I don't think there's a perfect formula for it. Your formula is your formula. I think as we strip away expectations of what we think other people should and shouldn't be doing, there's a direct correlation to our own personal happiness. For me, the benchmark is if my daughter's married somebody, because I don't have boys, so I have girls. Yeah. But I'm the benchmark for what a man's going to be for my daughters.
Right.
Would I want my daughters to marry somebody like me? And if I can't say yes, then I got some work to do. And ultimately, what I want my daughters to know is the true measure of success isn't your things. It's not your money. It's not your house. I've had all that stuff. It really is happiness. If you can live your life happy, you're going to feel like you led a great life. And if you're willing to chase your goals, you're not going to live a life of regret. So to me, like just telling young teenage boys, early 20-year-old men, and you know, even somebody 46 like me, hey, it's okay not to be okay. Yes. What's not okay is to stay there. Don't be a victim and take on that victim mindset. And that's why I wear a warrior shirt. You really do. Like saying you're a victim or a survivor means you just made it. Like you're just holding on. Bullshit. Like if you're still here, you're living, you're fighting, you're kicking. Like you're a damn warrior. You're a fighter. And warriors protect people. They love people. They do what's right. They have courage. And I think that's who we really all want to be.
Yep.
But where you land on in the middle of that somewhere is really each individual's own journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's that ebb and flow. And thank you for that, Walt. I appreciate you guys. We're nearing the top of the hour, so I still want to get your questions. So, Lee, what is your question for the group today? No, let's try to keep our answers about 2 minutes or less.
Okay. The question. This is the question I like to work with all the time. It is, given everything we've talked about, what is your one most important thing to do on a day in, day out basis to move the ball forward on this? Meaning being male beyond the label, being who you are beyond the label of masculine male, you know, that classic concept. What is it you can do today to change?
Paul,
that?
you can go first.
Yeah, I was going to jump in real quick. My day-to-day thing, I'm a process-oriented kind of guy, right? No. And I like the discipline and the rote progression of step 1, step 2, step 3 kind of things. And so I try to create little lists of, some people call them to-do list. You may call it a power list, whatever you call it, doesn't matter. I try to make a list and I try to execute that list every day. And my method to do that comes from a little bit of self-discipline and a little bit of mental toughness that I've just earned and gained over the years. But it comes down to, not to steal Chris's thunder, but it comes down to getting rid of all the damn excuses.
Yeah.
When you break it right down, your inner quitter will talk you out of almost anything, whether it's going for a walk in the afternoon or getting up and eating a healthy breakfast. He will talk you out of so many things. Sitting there in your bed in the mornings on a Saturday morning, the sun's just coming up and it's nice and comfortable and warm. Your inner quitter is telling you it's okay to lay there for an extra 10 minutes, where you need to really be listening to your inner champion and get your ass up and get your running shoes on and get out the door, because that's what the process says do. The process says get up, make your bed, go PT. And that's the way I do things. I try to make my list out. I try to just stick to the process of doing it.
Love it. Thank you, Paul. Mr. McKinley.
Paul, you cracked me up because, 20 years in the military, for me, I'm such a process-oriented guy. I like my checklists and check boxes.
we really are just robots at the end of the day.
So I think for me, one of the biggest shifts in the last couple of years has been starting my day off with gratitude. I think it's so easy to look at how our expectations aren't met, or how somebody slighted us, or how somebody hurt us, or maybe something in our life that didn't kind of go the right way. And you just lose gratitude for the amazing things that are happening in your life. Even some of my darkest moments, there were still lessons that I should have gratitude for, but I didn't see them. It's kind of like seeing the forest through the trees mentality. Having my breakdown in corporate America, I hadn't had no gratitude for that. You know what I mean? No gratitude, frustration and anger and shame and hurt. And, you know, you know, I had that. Once I realized, like, just live your day with gratitude. If you're living your day in gratitude, it allows you to enjoy the journey. As I was getting promoted my whole career, I would have relief that I got promoted. Not thanks that I got promoted, not even being proud of myself sometimes that I got promoted, just relief. It was like, oh, thank God. Okay, how do I get to the next thing?
What was the relief for? What was the relief for?
Because it was a goal that I had. So it was like relief that I hit the goal, not elation. And that sucked. It took me a long time. What I realized is because I was so goal focused, like that was my destination, not realizing it was just a waypoint on my life. I missed opportunities to grow. I missed opportunities to really have pride in what I was doing sometimes. I missed opportunities to live happier. As I've embraced gratitude and I've enjoyed every bit of the journey that I'm on now, it's unlocked a different level of happiness within me. And what I've attracted into my space, what comes into my space from speaking to whatever it is, to how I've showed up as a father and husband. So the love that I get in return has massively transformed. So for me, gratitude is the one thing. If you can't do nothing else, have gratitude.
Amen. Amen. For me, I'm going to build on that, Walt, because that's one of the things that I would say, we talk about this all the time, is the fact that when you first wake up in the morning, before your eyes open, you know, say what you're grateful for. And for me, the next thing is, you know, what are my intentions? So that's what I'm going to go with as far as my answer goes. And I love the question, Lee, is the fact that, you know, when I think about being intentional with my legacy, right? And I've told the story 1,000 times. The condensed version is in 2008, I wrote my eulogy. And so by which, and within that context of that eulogy, it says, Christopher Rausch will have fought for what's right and what's fair. He will have risked for which that mattered for, and he will have left the earth a better place for who he was and what he did. So for me, in my daily situations, as long as I'm moving the needle on that, as long as I'm using my words and my actions to make this world a better place, for me, then I'm on point. And to Walt's point as well, whenever I'm distracted or off track, I immediately go back to gratitude and think, fuck, wow, this is amazing what I get. The technology that I can go on ChatGPT and I can ask a question and get this answer back. The fact that everything is right here and I have all these amazing experiences, you know, life is pretty fucking amazing. And so the thing I've learned about myself is the fact that we're always thinking that something else is going to bring us that wholeness, is going to make us feel worthy, is going to make us feel complete. And I think one of the overarching messages that we've been talking about here tonight is being able to see things from that different perspective, see it from a healed perspective, and realize all the egoic validation in the world is great for that moment, but is it long lasting? And so for me, it's like, is what I'm doing right now moving the needle on that? I keep a sticky note in front of me that says, am I being intentional? And that's my big word for this year is, am I being intentional? Am I being on point? Am I using my words and my actions to make this world a better place? Hell yeah. Then if this is the last thing I ever do, and this is the last thing my son ever sees, I'll feel proud. I'll feel proud that today was the day that I continued to fight for my legacy and to risk for which that matters. So I'm honored to be with you guys. Lee, what's your answer to that question? Then Paul, ask your question. There we go.
My answer is my answer real quickly is what I was talking about. What I was.
I got you dizzy, didn't I?
Bro, I didn't know you had dance moves.
Yeah,
like
you
that.
did.
Here you go. We'll do this. We'll do the little thing.
Was what I was talking about before is just how can I show up better? How can I show up as a better version of me today? Because if I can keep continuing to improve, starting with, like Walt was saying, talking with gratitude, Christopher, being intentional, having a sense of order for all of it, that I can take one step today. What can I do today to get just a little bit better? So I'll just leave it just right there.
I love it. I love it. Being intentional. We're getting just a little bit better. Yeah, that was yesterday's Lee. That was yesterday's Chris. That was yesterday's Paul. So Paul, for rounding out the conversation tonight, what is your question for us in the group that by which you think by us answering will help give people the most proper value for their time investment tonight?
Yeah, I think I can probably guess all three answers before I even ask the question, but I had it written down, so I'm going to ask it anyway.
Go for it.
So I had one of those days today where, you know, you just want to go back to bed and start over. Yeah,
That was my
just
week last
right
week.
off the bat, stuff just wasn't going right. The coffee wasn't right. The dog pooped in the house, bad traffic on the way to work. And it was one of those days where by the time I was about a quarter mile from turning into work, and had already convinced myself this is going to be a really shitty day, and I approached a red light. Traffic was backed up about 200 or 300 yards, and there was a motorcycle that was in a couple of billion pieces in the middle of the intersection. And that right there just brought me right back down to earth and turned that negative right into a positive. And I said, you know what? I might be having a shitty day, but that guy's going to have a really shitty week. Yeah. So my question to you guys is, what is your tip, strategy, tactic, trick to take a really crappy day and turn it into a positive day?
Ooh, I love that, Paul. Go for it, Mr. McKinley.
All right. So typically it's gratitude, but I think we all need more toolboxes or more tools in our toolbox than that.
Yeah.
I think it's just perspective for me. There's so many things in life. And Stephanie said this. She goes, you'll be so aggravated about running late somewhere. Because military, if you ain't 10 minutes early, you're late. So I'll get so frustrated with that sometimes. And then we've literally had a car stolen before. And she's like, you don't get mad at all. You're so calm in the worst situations. And I said, because I know that we can do something about that. I know that the day will get better. I know that we pay for insurance and we'll go get another car. Like it is what it is. You can't change some of those things. What's really helped me a lot is like focusing on not reacting and starting to respond. I spent so much of my life reacting and I can feel it. It's not like I don't. I had somebody, and I'll keep this little short story short. I had somebody not too long ago kind of come at me with some real venom. They texted me, you effing this, you effing that, you effing this. And initially I was like, oh, boy, he wouldn't talk to me like this in person, you freaking coward. And it was ruining my day in that moment, ruining it. And I chose to just respond, because if I'm going to live the life I'm living, if I'm going to be happy, if I'm going to walk my walk, right, instead of just talking it, I needed to control my emotions in this moment and realize everything that was happening was about that person. It literally had nothing to do with me. They relapsed on alcohol. They were massive alcoholic before, and they drank, and they did it to about 4 or 5 people that they knew. And I just happened to be one of them. But what happened is, instead of me moving out throughout my whole day, super pissed, really angry, and letting this one moment ruin my day, I realized it wasn't even about me. It was about them. I need to focus on where I'm going and the journey that I'm on, and not let them derail my peace. And so in the moment, I chose to respond by protecting my peace. And for me, that is huge. It's the constant challenge, except for in traffic. Sometimes, Paul, I feel you. I was in DC for like 4 years, bro. I screamed out loud one time on the freeway.
The struggle is real.
It really is. And not flipping people off and all that, like Christopher said he used to do. So for me, it's just focus on your perspective. We would have killed to be where we're at as adults now as little kids. Oh yeah. We would have killed to be in this position that all 4 of us are in. So sometimes it's okay to reflect back to get perspective of how far you've come, so that you can have gratitude for where you're going. And by doing that, you'll maximize your potential.
Amen. Love it. Mr. Lee, your answer to said question. Your tool for the toolbox.
My tool for the toolbox. First of all, just a little phrase that I just came flying out of my mouth this morning. One of those things that just happens. Flexibility creates possibility.
Yeah. Love that.
Flexibility creates possibility. And that applies so frequently to so many things. Because the thing, what Paul was talking about is like all of a sudden, just the day starts off on the wrong thing, and we get locked in, right? We get so locked in. This is the way, tunnel vision. We are locked in. This is the way the rest of the day is going to be, until something shakes it loose. The trick is being able to catch the fact that I am locked into this pattern, and what can I do to shake it loose? How can I be more flexible? Change the music station. Change my route to wherever it is I'm going. Shake it up just a little bit to it's like, for me, it's like telling the universe, okay, I'm ready. I'm open to changing this. It doesn't have to continue down this path. I'm open to changing this, and this is my contribution. This is my first step. Changing the radio, whatever. Stop and meditate, take a deep breath, pull to the side of the road, say a prayer, whatever you want to do to make that, set up a change. Just break it loose just a little bit. So there you go.
I love it. I love it. Let's see my answer to that question. There's been so many different answers that have populated through my head because I love that, Paul. For me, it is, I'm going to go with this one story. So it kind of builds on the fact of gratitude, but Walt reminded me of the story not too long ago. When I think about, for me, solving a problem, I want to go to the root cause of the problem. I don't want to deal in symptoms. Mm-hmm. And so for me, when I'm thinking about something, if like, for example, my pain, I've had a lot of chronic pain since 2006. I've had back surgery in 2019. They want me to do more surgery. But I found myself walking one day, this is before I had surgery. And I was thinking, how can I reframe my perspective about this pain? We feel like, oh, I don't want this pain. I want to be pain free. We get this ideal in our brain that for the rest of our life, I want to be pain free. But I thought about it. I'm like, how can I use pain as potential leverage for me not to sit and be complacent and stay comfortable like everybody says I should? Like, Chris, you're in so much pain. You shouldn't overdo it. You shouldn't go to the gym. You should take it easy. You should take a bath, which I do take the baths. But for me, I was like, okay, maybe the pain's a signal that I need to get stronger in other areas of my body, right? And so thinking about how I can shift my perspective to say, okay, the pain is a signal that perhaps, yes, my back is screwed up, but are my legs as strong as they possibly can? Is my core as strong as it possibly can? Is my lower back as strong as it possibly can? And maybe this is a signal for me to do more work and to be more intentional about what it is that I'm doing. But then for me, it was also like, okay, how can I find gratitude for being in pain? Like, okay, I have the fact that I get to move around, the fact I get to do things. I'm like, yeah. And then it dawned on me. I have a friend of mine, a friend of a friend from back in the 80s. We called him Big Mike. He actually had a drinking problem. I don't think he's going to be watching this. Had a drinking problem, fell and passed out over his daughter's wood bench in their apartment. He was divorced and he had his daughter for the weekend, or didn't have his daughter that weekend, but he fell and he broke the table and part of the wood severed his spinal cord. And so when he woke up, he was a quadriplegic. Basically, he was numb. He was paralyzed from the neck down. He had sat there for like 18 hours screaming for somebody to help him. Finally, a gardener put a ladder up to the window, broke the window and called an ambulance, and he wound up being paralyzed. And I thought, okay, how can I have gratitude for this pain? Would Mike want to have my pain? Yes or no? Yes. So it was an immediate perspective shift. It was like, wow, Mike would want to have this pain. He would beg to have this pain. He can't feel anything in his legs. So I'm like, fuck, I can feel my legs. I can have gratitude for this. So yeah, I go kind of as sick, twisted ways to try to figure things out. But what is your answer for that question, Mr. Paul, before we round out the conversation tonight?
Yeah. Being that we wanted to talk about mental health and all that good stuff, I got a couple of answers to it. So one, I'm reading this book right now called Mindfulness, written by a couple of doctors, got 3 letters behind their names. It's really good though, because I read this one line today that says, and I underscored it in the book a couple of times. And the line just says simply, you only have a moment to enjoy this moment. Otherwise, you're living in the past and you're thinking about the future. And I kind of try to take it down like that. Just take it right down to the moments. And you guys said all the right answers, the gratitudes, the maintaining the perspective on what's really important, and trying to keep that positive flame going despite what you're having. But going all the way back to the beginning of the conversation, an hour and 8 minutes and 15 seconds ago, and we're talking about the mental health is, guys, talk to somebody about it.
Yes.
If you're having a shitty day, then tell somebody. Maybe that person's having a really good day and they can uplift you. I had a guy at work the other day come by and he was having a bad day. He sat down and he goes, dude, I love coming by and sitting down at your desk because you just have this positive aura about you. And I know that you'll bring me back. Yeah. And so I try to be that kind of guy. I try to put out positive energy out into the universe. And I think that when I need it, I get it back. And that's my tip and my trick.
I love it. I love it, guys. Michael Baker has joined us. He says here, gratitude, keeping an attitude of gratitude, count your blessings every single day. Yes, Michael, thank you for this. Yeah. And he also says up here, intelligence over emotions, awareness, inspiration, think and respond. Yeah, that's been cornerstones of my life is what you guys have been talking about. Do I want to be happy or do I want to be right? That's what I think about in terms of relationships and things that I, we're brought up. Like if you're right, you're awesome. And if you're wrong, you're bad. And so what do we try to do? We try to win every particular argument because I'm going to prove that I'm right and I'm superior and I've got you. But for me, it was like watching my mom prove herself right every single time, but at what cost? So I started asking myself, do I want to be happy or do I want to be right? Is it really do I really want to die on that mountain? I have had so many conversations with people where I've just had to sit there and say, I'm just going to let them have this one. It's okay that they can go ahead and feel this way. I know I could cite and go Google it and everything else, but it's just not enough for me to prove them wrong, because I could see how invested in themselves and in their identity that they potentially are. And that's one question. That's one area we didn't even go down that rabbit hole as far as identity. So I definitely want to continue having these discussions with you beautiful people. I know we brought awareness, and I know we brought opportunity for the people that are watching this and viewing this. In your final summarization, what would you go back and tell your younger self about the journey that you've been on and where you're at today? What kind of perspective would you give that younger version of yourself, that teenage version of yourself that's struggling and is trying to figure out who he is? What would you say to that person? And then as you end that out, let people know where they can continue the conversation with you via your social media accounts and whatnot. So I'll let you, Lee, let you go first.
Just a great conversation tonight. Yeah, guys, I just really appreciate it. I just want to express my gratitude.
Thank you.
For all of you. And I think that for me, a lot of it is it's just gratitude. We struggle, we push back and forth against all the stuff, man. And it's so easy to get wrapped up in all the drama and nonsense. And when it comes down to it, in the end, for me, it's like I said before a couple of times, how can I be a better person? How can I be a better person today than I was yesterday? How can I be more balanced? How can I be more loving, more caring? How can I give the people in my life more attention and be more conscious and be more present? And I think that is so key, is staying present in this moment, staying present with the people around us, staying present with right here with what we're doing. That is the thing that's going to make all the difference. That's the thing that will make the difference in my life, and that's the thing that will make the difference in the lives of those around us. And for me, that's the crucial thing. Is keep showing up and keep sharing. Tell the story in a way that creates opportunities for others to learn as we learn.
Yeah. I love that. Learning, continuous growth, continuous opportunity for the expansion. Thank you, Brother Lee. Where can people get a hold of you to keep the conversation going with you, sir?
Find me on Facebook or Scottsdale Center for Spiritual Living. There it is, Scottsdale Center for Spiritual Living, where I am the co-senior minister now. I just started that about a month ago. So back into that gig. And then Facebook.com, Simple Spirit 101 on Facebook. And that will be it. And Instagram, Simple Spirit 101. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you, Brother Lee. And what would be your final summation, Mr. Paul Roscoe White? Your final summation to yourself. What kind of advice would you give your younger self, and where can people continue the conversation with you after this?
Yeah, God, man, I could probably fill a notebook with stuff that I'd go back and tell my younger self. It would be a lengthy discussion, but here's something that I've been teaching my kids. Again, I'm a boy dad. This is what I've been teaching my kids as they were old enough to understand it. And I've been saying this as a saying in our house, and it's just be a good dude. And I think you can wrap so much into that.
Yeah.
And shameless plug, I do have a book coming out called Work Hard, Don't Suck, where I actually outline what that means to me. It's being humble, being a man of honor, having integrity, carrying yourself with character, all these little things that are wrapped up into that. And you can kind of make it whatever you want, but that's one thing that I would go back and tell my kids. I'd also tell them to slow down a little bit, man. Just enjoy the ride. Sometimes life is beautiful and it's awesome. And if you're just living life in the fast lane all the time, you miss the cool side stops. Sometimes you might miss the ice cream shop or the world's largest ball of yarn, or who knows, So yeah, there's my shameless plug, my book coming out hopefully next month called Work Hard, Don't Suck. It's a strategies and tactics to raising children with honor, character, and discipline. It's all stories from my life and raising my kids, and helping them, hopefully, as they transition into young adulthood, helping them be able to see why I did some of the things that I did, and hopefully carry that into another generation. You can find me at paulroscoewhite.com or on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook at Paul Roscoe White.
Dude, I appreciate you. Love the conversation tonight. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Warrior Legacy Podcast, Mr. Walt McKinley. What say you? What would you go back and tell your badass younger self?
Man, what would I tell my getting in trouble younger self? First, you're not alone. I think that'd be the first thing I'd tell them.
Yeah.
You're not perfect. And to give yourself grace for the mistakes you'll make along the way. The last thing I would say is, to your point, Paul, enjoy the journey. I mean, it really took me until I was 44 years old to start to really, they say, stop and smell the roses for a reason. Don't be so quick to get to the next thing that you forget to just enjoy the journey of how far you've come so that you can really get to where you're going. And then, so for me, there's two places you can find me right now, www.waltmckinley.com. I'm on all the socials. It's on my website. But more importantly, my wife and I have partnered together to create the Legacy Warrior podcast, where we hit real topics that people want to elevate their life floor and their life ceiling with, or that they might be struggling with, in a way that really, I feel like, really connects with people through stories and through just lived experiences. So legacywarrior.com or waltmckinley.com. Super simple.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Well, gentlemen, this has been an awesome conversation with you guys. I'm going to stick you backstage. Don't go anywhere, because I still want to chat with you, and I'm just going to end out the show. But thank you, beautiful people, for being here. I appreciate and love each one of you. Don't go anywhere. And we will be, so there we are, ladies and gentlemen, a little bit over time, an hour and 15 minutes, but I believe you will agree with me that this was a brilliant conversation, and one that we need to have. There was so many different spots where I had to shut up and just think about all the different questions I wanted to ask, any of them at any particular moment, so we could dig deeper into that. So when you find value out of this, and if you did find value out of this, I would love to hear it in the comments and the private messages. Let us know what triggered for you, what resonated for you, and what it is that you're going to continue to do in your life based on what it is that you heard and saw today. My ask of you is, if you got value out of this, please share this on your social media. Share it out with a few words. Let us know what it is that you were inspired by in this conversation. Let your social media people know. Send it to a few people specifically and say, hey, listen, I just watched this conversation with these tough dudes who are really raw and vulnerable about what it is they would do a little bit differently in their life, and how they can see their perspectives differently, to see that life is happening for them and not to them. Share that on your social media, because this is going to take a group lift for us all to get together and realize that we can be more part of the solution than part of the problem, by just going, oh yeah, it's a big problem, and then, hey, who's watching what on Netflix, right? It's one thing to sit there and say you're passionate about something. It's another thing to actually do something about it. And I'm pointing my fingers at myself as well. I've been very vocal and advocational about so many different things, but have I really done what I can do to use my voice and my platform? No. So that's changing. So again, together we learn and we grow. And that's what I've gotten out of this conversation tonight with my beautiful friends. This is the second one. So in the show notes, whether you're watching this or listening to this, you can always go to rawunscripted.com. You can find the show, and you can find the link in there to go see the previous one that we did with Walt, myself, and Scott Goyette and Jacques Quer. Another brilliant conversation. So we're going to continue doing these, maybe quarterly. So let me know what type of subjects, what type of conversation matter you would like us to dive into, and we'll definitely make sure that happens. Again, I would appreciate a solid from you guys, because I know you did get value out of this. I put the link in there somewhere around here. Yes. Oh, we got Pamela Aubrey in the house. She goes, hey, I just like the rock star host. Have to watch the full replay. Thank you, my dear. I appreciate you. I got to meet Pamela for in all 40 minutes in Los Angeles, or in Irvine not too long ago. Pamela says here, just be a good dude. That's good. My boy is growing, but I'm going to use that following. So thank you for that. Yeah. And somewhere I put in here, just go subscribe to my podcast. I don't know where the fuck it went, but I put the link in there. I put it in there somewhere. Where did I put it? Let me do it. Let me do it again. So here's the deal. I'm really working hard, and I'm working better to ask for favors and ask for things from you guys. So here's the link. It's inside the show. Go subscribe to the podcast. Leave me a review. Let us know what's up. I really want to get this in more eyes and ears, and continue taking the message that we talked about here today, and how you guys can apply it in your life. Jock says here, great show. I'm definitely going to have you on, brother, and continue this conversation with all the gentlemen that we know, because at the end of the day, if you're miserable with your life and you're not taking care of yourself, then who do you have to blame? Right. When you think about, if you're not happy in your job, there's so many people that aren't happy in situations, but yet they're not doing anything about it. That's stupid. Right. Time is flying by. When you think about how fast the last 20 years went, think about how fast the next 20 years are going to go. And do you want to live with regrets ultimately about what it is that you didn't do in your life? You sat there and you carried that anger and that animosity and that resentment with you your entire life. But what did it serve? Who did it serve? Did it protect you from falling in love and getting hurt again? What did it do? So I invite you to really sit there and look back at what it is that you can release and you can surrender, whether it's with a clinical psychologist or psychiatrist, whatever you might need, whether it's plant-based medicine. That's what I'm looking into. Together, let's heal ourselves. Let's love ourselves, and let's be a better example to our people and our families, and then also the people in our community. So I love you guys. We'll be back here next week on the Raw and Unscripted show. Who do we have next week? The show's blowing up, man. I'm super excited and super stoked to have everybody here. Ooh, we got Kate McLaren next week. She just actually won her first female boxing match in Australia, the land down under. So she's going to be on the show talking about resiliency and what it's taken for her to sacrifice and get her body into the physical peak condition that it's in and to win this match. She's a brilliant person. You're going to love her to death. She's got a great accent as well. So Kate McLaren's going to be on the show next week. The week after that, we got Sean Dodd in the house. You guys are going to dig him a lot. So go out there, be brilliant, apply this information, apply this knowledge. Be sure to check us out at noexcusescoach.com, of course, and go out there, be brilliant. I love you guys. We'll see you next week on